I've seen those uncles with the Beijing bikini where they roll up their shirts.
Hi, I'm Andy,
And I'm Roger,
and welcome to The Middle,
where we try to have thoughtful conversations
about awkward topics.
on our search to find the middle.
We're going to give you last week's news today.
It's a slogan we should put on a t-shirt.
I am tonight announcing my candidacy.
Taylor Swift. Look, my biggest issue with marriage is that I think that it's a fundamentally flawed institution that is built on the oppression of women.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny.
Having truly rational conversations about controversial issues is risky these days.
Andy,
Roger, how you going?
I'm back, baby, as Costanza would say. Costanza's dead.
Back from what?
Back on a middle-aged boys' trip to Brisbane to visit your sorry ass. Although the weather has been far from ideal.
It's not as good as it was the last time you were up here. It's probably the coldest I've ever felt in Brisbane in just under a year.
Well, it's a plus for me because I'm used to seeing you casually in shorts and a thong. So the blessing for me is that I don't get to see your calves this time. So I'm good.
Not fan of the of feeling cold in jeans and a jumper.
Yeah, so no, it's always good. So come to visit you in Brisbane. Booked the Mustang, but didn't get the camp convertible that I did last time. But managed to book a little Airbnb in the valley. But I must say it's very depressing to me. You know, it makes me feel it's a window into my life. If I was a bachelor living in the city, how sterile and lonely it would be. Good and bad, but anyway.
But just think of all the people living similarly lonely lives either side of you.
You mean the Chinese spies?
No, I mean the Chinese international students.
Even just, you know what it is? It's actually the lobby. When you get out of that lift and there's the flickering halogens like some kind of low-budget B-grade horror movie, and then you come into your sterile white box of an apartment that you can almost reach out with your wingspan and touch side to side. It's no good.
Like all of these places, like modern apartment buildings get built for, like the photographs, right? They get built for, hey, this has got to be an ad on a real estate agent website somewhere at some time to like hook people in, and often they're being sold before they're even built. So they're built for the pictures. It's a little bit like a house built by someone from The Block, you know, that TV show, where you just know that their attention to detail isn't there.
Yeah, it's a bit slapdash. But you know what? Brisbane in general, great city. And I think I commented on this last time I was here that the demographic is very different from Sydney and Melbourne. We spoke about Pauline Hanson's vision for Australia as a monoculture last episode. And I've got to say, Brisbane might be that monoculture to me, you know?
There's certainly a lot more Maroon supporters here than...
Let's just be frank and call a spade. There's a lot more white people here.
What are you trying to say?
Nothing. I just think that if any major city, capital city in Australia embodies Pauline Hanson's monoculture, it's Brisbane.
It's probably not a dissimilar thing to if you go an hour out of like a capital city, right? So you drive, whether that's Sydney, Melbourne, whatever, you drive an hour north, south, east, west. And
maybe not west in Sydney.
Well, not in Sydney, no. But because you're still in Sydney. But let's say you go to the Blue Mountains, right? Like it suddenly becomes a different flavour, right? Or north.
The gays have gentrified the Blue Mountains, though, is my understanding.
Yeah, but like in a white kind of way, right?
True, yeah, true.
But I think just like Brisbane is just that same experience you'll get anywhere else in the country, only that it's in the capital city.
True.
All right, so today I thought we would talk about the miracle drug, Miracle Whip.
Viagra?
The next generation's miracle drug. So if you said like, let's say 20 years ago or 10 years ago even, if you said there will be a drug that will, for those people who go on it, will lose like 10, 15, 20% of the body weight, will help them with cardiovascular risk, sleep apnea, diabetes, like all round like good for their health, right? Like people would probably say you're a snake oil salesman, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So this is like, this is a reality now, right? So we have this class of like GLP-1 drugs. There's like a few of them. So like the most famous one is like Ozempic, right? So that's the one that, you know, kind of really broke through in the mainstream. But like there's, you know, like they're a family of drugs. So there's like different brands, there's different compounds or different, I don't know, whatever the right, semaglutide, tirzepatide, those kind of different different forms of these class of drugs called GLP-1 drugs. And they're kind of like started off as diabetes drugs, but they've been found to have all these other benefits, and they're kind of taking the world by storm. And like it seems like it's like it's a new, it is a little bit like, I mean, you sort of bring up Viagra jokingly, but it does feel like
one of those breakthrough moments.
I say feel like and breakthrough moments, I wasn't quite thinking about that, but it has a similar kind of vibe or
well, I mean, it probably is, right? With something like Viagra, it is a breakthrough drug, a drug that helps men with physical physical erections with seemingly very, very little downside. This is the magic pill, right? And I mean, I know GLP-1s aren't a pill right now, but they might well be very, very soon. And it started in celebrity culture, like all of these fat loss and miracle cures. But now everyone, like, the mum and pop, your colleagues, your brothers, your sisters, your pastor, they're all on it now, right? Like it's no longer a supply issue around the world. There are compounding pharmacies. There's lots of different brands, not just Ozempic and Mounjaro, but other things like that. It's becoming pretty endemic, right?
All right. So let's talk through them a little bit, like the actual kind of effects. So like obviously we're not like here to like dole out like medical advice or anything like that, but we just thought we'd like just maybe let's tease out some of the theoretical or like philosophical aspects to this. So one of the angles is like, so in terms of how they work, right? So I don't really know the science, so I'm not going to try and talk to that. But like in a nutshell, there's this sense that like people who are on these drugs, right, they don't feel as hungry, or they like it's a combination of a few different things. They probably don't feel as hungry. They don't like aspire to eat. They don't like, they feel full quicker. Food becomes a bit like meh. Like it's not like, oh, I really want like another like M&M or another, like, oh, a bag of chips would be good right now. Or like, oh, I could really do a big, like, a big double like quarter pounder meal or something,
Yeah.
Like it just, people just don't want those kinds of things in the same way as maybe they once did. And I guess like that brings like a whole conversation about like obesity and, this idea that like people who are obese just have poor willpower, right? Because it brings this into question, right? It says, well, actually, if you're fat, it's just because it's your own lack of self-control, right?
It's always been the way. I mean, I think the line that I've heard that resonates most with me is this idea of food noise. So this kind of background volume, or your craving, your hunger, your desire for food, and how loud that is in your conscious or subconscious. These GLP-1s quieten the volume, right? And to your point, we like to subscribe personal agency with these things, and food, drugs, any kind of vice is one of them, right? And this idea that everyone has, what's interesting to me is this idea, do we start with an idea that everyone has the same volume of food noise in their mind? Or actually, do we grant that some people have louder food noise, or they have stronger desires, stronger hunger, stronger cravings as a base level? And that's the part that's interesting with me.
I think the reality is most people have a lot of food noise, and most people actually, I mean, the reality is most people are like, if not obese, overweight, right? Or it's certainly increasing, right? So it's not uncommon for people to be either overweight by a small amount up to obese. Like that's probably the majority of the population, right? Like the majority of the population is not in like the healthy BMI weight zone, right? The majority
not in the Western world.
Sorry, what do you mean?
I agree. They're definitely not in the Western world. They're above
No,
BMI.
that's right. Yeah. So, and so much of that's to do with kind of our way of life, like culture, and also just like not getting enough exercise, and the wrong kinds of foods being available. So like the high carbohydrate, sugar, and gas.
Well, let me ask it plainly to you. So if you lined up 10 clinically obese, let's just say men for now, because they're easier to visualize, would you think that those 10 clinically obese men would have a louder food noise or stronger desires and hunger responses in their brain than 10 men of average BMI, like they're just standard body weight.
It's a combination of food noise, or let's just use that language, right? Food noise as in your appetite for food, or your
desire,
or that thing in your head that says like, I need to eat now, or even I want to eat now, combined with the environment. So there's definitely going to be differences. So there will be, like, you could have someone who in a different situation will act differently depending on the circumstances. So, you know, one of the things that sometimes is suggested is that people who live in lower socioeconomic areas are more surrounded by fast food outlets, for example, right? And then in, say, inner city areas, they're like, yes, there's a lot of like, you know, quick service like food options, but they might be like cafes, and where, yeah, okay, it can still be unhealthy, but like at the end of the day, like avocado on toast is like going to be better for you than, you know, like a McDonald's breakfast kind of thing. So plus a big soda of, you know, whatever. So it's those kinds of things at the margin. And then you might have other things, other factors at play. Like, are they, you know, is there a cultural thing that prioritizes like fitness and like, is that part of the culture? And then does that then contribute additional mindfulness to eating? So if you just run like 10 kilometers, you're probably, your first instincts aren't, okay, now I'm going to go like pig out on a bunch of junk food. So those people might be more like have high mindfulness about what they're eating, not because they have less or more or less food noise, but they're just simply more, they're paying attention in a way that those other. So I don't think necessarily, but like I do think when you factor in different circumstances, if you combine like susceptibility to food noises plus their like context that they're living and operating in, I guess, long story short, I don't think you necessarily can say that like the 10 obese people or whatever, I mean, you said are like less virtuous than those in the normal BMI range.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, you know, for simplicity's sake, I see it as like a triangle, like a 3-point scale, which is like your biological disposition to weight. And that could, you know, you could go scientific with that. You could say it's how much natural lean muscle mass you have, which determines your maintenance calories, blah, blah, blah. But basically, let's put everything under the biological DNA style ability to gain weight under one point of the triangle. The second, I think, is the food noise and the discipline side, like your temperament around it. And then the third is the environment, right? Like how accessible is food to you? How much of your family, like there's a reason when you see families that are overweight, they're all overweight. It's because it's like cultural aspects, you know, environmental aspects to food, having junk food in the house, having big appetites. And what's normal? Like if you come from a family where everyone is slightly chubby, then it's natural for you to feel that that's fine, right? So I think those 3 points in the triangle to really dumb it down for me are what I look at. And I think the problem is that people like to take away the biological aspect a bit more, because that's the one part that you don't really control. You don't control how tall or short you are. You don't control, you know, whether you have brown eyes or blue eyes. And so people don't like this idea of it's, you know, it's baked into DNA. And I think what GLP-1s, the interesting with GLP-1s is it controls the other points of the triangle, and it starts to feed things, right? But what I'm quite interested in is this idea of when you start messing with someone's response to hunger, craving, and almost the ability to, like, for a biological response to motivate behavior, I feel like that is worth discussing, right? Like that is actually changing someone's behavior and potentially like their mental processing. And that's the part that really interests me, right? Does it affect, if you're someone who all you think about is food, right? You get great pleasure from thinking about food, eating the food, you know, you're a foodie, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden GLP-1s come into the picture and they change your relationship with food, right? Because you don't crave it as much. You don't think about it as much. In fact, when you eat it, your enjoyment window is reduced because you feel full quicker, right? Then does that start to change a fundamental part of your personality?
I don't think that's a different question in a lot of ways than simply saying if you stop people like who are like if you stop smokers from smoking, is that changing them? It's a fundamental part of themselves. Like it's a craving that they enjoy. Like people who smoke, like the traditional kind of cigarette smoking, right? like they get a lot of benefit from that in the moment. That's a relaxing thing that they can do. It's something they probably enjoy. There's probably a bit of
It's the original breath work.
well, it's like it's like the I mean, I think we've just transplanted that kind of habitual thing into like something like going and getting a coffee. Like the old smoko break at work has been replaced with I'm going to get a coffee kind of thing.
Which is why we need the Ozempic now.
And it's
Drinking a liter of milk every day.
too much coffee. But like, okay, so like the good thing about all of this stuff is you choose your own destiny, right? So if you feel like you just love food and food is so important to you, it's an important part of your life, and you are happy to wear the health consequences of eating the food that you eat because you just know you love it so much and you don't want that to change in yourself, then hey, the great thing is you do not have to have these drugs. So, but often the people who take these drugs have made the call that they don't like their relationship with food. They don't like that they eat not because they're hungry, but because it's a thing to do, or it de-stresses them, or it satisfies some other urge other than hunger, right? They don't like that. And then they know it's not good for them. They're conscious. And so in the same way as a smoker who has a nicotine patch because it'll help them quit, or they transition to something else or do whatever it is that they have to do to quit, it's no different here, right? It's like these people recognize that there's something about their relationship with food that they want to change, and they now have an intervention that can help them to do that, right? And so I don't think, well, I certainly don't think it's a problem in terms of like, is it I actually don't think it's like, so like, and again, like I'm talking about this like with like an absence of knowledge of the precise science, and there's probably even a lot of unknowns with these drugs anyway, but I don't think the effect is in the brain, right? It's not that it attacks the brain and changes how the brain reacts to food. It's actually other aspects. So it's like people feeling full earlier, and the food noise piece, it's like that can come from like other like changes in the body that trigger that, right? So I don't know that it's like changes the psychology of a person, right?
What if it was like something similar to a pill that removed sexual desire? So it removed like horniness in men, right? Don't you think that would fundamentally change someone's personality and change like your motivations and drive to do things in like ways that we haven't comprehended?
Well, not necessarily. Like I think, and just to be clear, like one of the things they say about these drugs is it's not just food. Like people have less desire for other things that are not considered good for you, like alcohol, for example. So
Gambling,
and like, so this isn't a purely food related story, though. Like it does seem like food's the main sort of reason you would have it, but apart from diabetes, which is the number one reason you would be probably prescribed these by a medical practitioner. But I guess just in terms of that question, no, I don't think so. I think desire and the reward system, right? So that's really what we're talking about, right?
some kind of dopamine reward.
We're talking about like the reward you get from doing a certain thing, whether it's eating, gambling, smoking, whatever, right? Taking drugs, like, and I think that's not the core of a person. That's just, especially if that person recognizes that in themselves and wants to change that in themselves, right?
It's interesting though. You say it's not the core of a person, but maybe eating, I guess I understand, right? But if I generalize that out to say a reward system around sex and kind of connection and all the things that kind of come with that, then maybe I might reconsider that. You know, that I think that do I believe a lot of human behavior is motivated by kind of like sex and reward? Yes. As
far as I'm aware, and I might be wrong, but like there's no evidence that these drugs, and like maybe you're just doing a thought experiment, so maybe you're not talking about these drugs, but like there isn't evidence that these drugs are just creating a whole bunch of like
zombies
that don't like food.
But the word Ozempic zombie is something that is being spoken about now. There's obviously a certain percentage of the population where the reward loop is compromised to a degree where there is some kind of emotional blunting. And now, again, not doctors, and talking about a fringe side effect, which will emerge over time. But that what I'm saying is I'm not accusing GLP-1s of doing this, but if we go down this road and we find out that there are certain drugs that can be taken that manipulate a physical response that then in turn affects behavior and mental thought patterns, then isn't this a very... don't we need to proceed with extreme caution when it comes to that?
Well, obviously they've got to study and understand the impacts, and like this is like there's rapid changes, right? So like Ozempic is one of many now, right? And like it's not even like this is okay. Like where we're at now with these drugs is like the equivalent of the first Tesla. So like whatever the first Tesla was, like, and you imagine like 15 years ago what that looked like, and then imagine. Like there will be the equivalent innovation with these drugs as there has been with electric cars over the last 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So
you mean the Chinese are going to copy them?
the Chinese don't need weight loss drugs, but so probably not them. But you know what I mean? Like this is that. Okay.
I don't know. I've seen those uncles with the Beijing belly, the Beijing bikini, where they roll up their shirts.
Yeah. Oh no, that's just a cultural problem. But
just say there's not six packs under those under those singlets.
They can't afford Ozempic. But okay, so the drug that will like become the shining light and the most successful isn't necessarily the drug that's going to result in the most significant weight loss, right? So it's not necessarily going to be the most the one that like if you take this you will lose 30, 40, 50% of your weight. Like that's not the one that will be the most successful. It will be the one that gives you good solid weight loss with very minimal side effects. And by side effects, I would include the kinds of things you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And those will be those will be the drugs that will become like the most popular, and also the ones that are just easier to stay on long term, right? Because like we haven't really talked about some of the other aspects of these drugs, but like this is like the perfect drug for like the pharmaceutical industry because it's like you need to be on it, you need to stay on it because the evidence is that when people come off them, they just put the weight back on, right? So whilst people are on it, it has these amazing benefits, but for those benefits to be sustained, you have to be on them, right?
And again, a drug always has a patient, right? And there's a target thing that it's trying, the effect, right? And the effect is weight loss for those who are outside a healthy range. But what I see 100% happening over the medium term is that average people of average or slightly above a normal weight will be on these drugs in some kind of microdose or whatever it is to help them control eating, right? And that's the part that I wonder if we're looking at a future where there is almost a cocktail of these type of drugs that help you do everything. They help you control your weight. They might help you control your focus, your anger, your freaking sexual desire, everything, right? Or your testosterone. And it just becomes this omni shot to have total control of your hormonal functions, your bodily functions, everything. And that does make me wonder whether that is a bit of a Pandora's box for the human race, right? Because, I think that we've also seen examples of it being abused. So if you look at the first round of celebrities, I'm thinking of the well-known cases like a Sharon Osbourne or something, and they get the Ozempic face, right? So with any kind of weight loss, it's facilitated by a caloric deficit, which GLP-1s help you achieve. So eating less calories than you burn, and that is what drives weight loss. But of course, if you do that in a vacuum where you have no resistance training with weights, you have no nutritional kind of baseline, bad things happen, right? Women get brittle bones, osteoporosis, the collagen leaks out of your face. You've got like skeletal kind of situations going on. And we've seen some of those bad things. And my problem is that humans are inherently lazy. And right, like, yes, you should be doing GLP-1s with a really strict routine of resistance training and nutrition, all this. But to be frank, if you had the discipline to do that with your current lifestyle, then maybe you wouldn't be using GLP-1s anyway. So I worry a little bit that we just have to, like you said, get this balance right for humanity, because my worldview is that humans are very lazy, right? And they will do what is easiest to them. And I just kind of think if this is a Pandora's box of maybe, like, have you seen the movie Gattaca? Maybe this is the start of that, right? Maybe this is the start of total control over the human genome, but through these kind of drugs that manipulate the human biological response.
I think you mentioned Pandora's box. The problem is the Pandora's box has already been opened, right? And the Pandora's box is like starts with the agricultural revolution and ends in a McDonald's on every fucking street corner, right? That's Pandora's box, because that is not how humans are meant to live, right? That's just so unnatural, and that is not how our bodies are designed. So this is like a little bit of like extra scaffolding to counteract the other bit of scaffolding that doesn't work for us, right? So I think like that's like, and look, just to put some things on the table here, right, about these drugs, right? Because like, okay, with any new drug, right, especially when it's got all of these promised benefits, especially something as and now in some respects I would say superficial, like as weight loss, because for a lot of people they're taking it for like appearance, right? They want to achieve like a certain look, right? And that's probably the celebrity kind of angle, right? But actually weight loss is actually, there's like health benefits, right?
So many.
So I guess the thing is, right, you can look at these drugs and you can be concerned about there's some tail risk or there's something that we haven't caught yet, right? So everyone's sort of worried about the side effects. They're worried about, is there something we've not picked up, right? And that maybe is some of the space you're dabbling in as well, in terms of like long term, like what are the consequences and so on and so forth. But I think now, like where we're at with these drugs is that the benefits are so profound, not just for weight loss, but like reduced cardiovascular risk, like people who have sleep apnea, and not all of these things are directly related to the weight loss. Some of these things are happening independent of the weight loss. So
they're seeing slowdown in cancer cells and all sorts of things as secondary effects of GLP-1s.
So there's so many of these like health benefits that I think 5 years ago, if you saw a GP and you said, hey, like Ozempic, I've heard about this thing called Ozempic, can I have it for like weight loss? They would have said, sorry, no, that's for people on diabetes, like who have diabetes and so on. But my understanding now is like the medical community is like, nah, like these are so profoundly beneficial for people that if someone expresses that they're like, they'll prescribe it to you. Like
I can imagine if you're a GP, right, and you see the same, you've got your clients, you see the same patients year in, year out. That every year they come back to you a little bit fatter, a little bit sicker, right? And the thing that you tell them is you need to eat well, exercise, and sleep. And for whatever reason, they come back the next year and they never can follow through on that, right? This must be a godsend, because as a GP, as a physician, if they just lost 20 kilos, it would solve 2/3 of their problems, right? And would give them another 10 years of life. I'm not surprised that the community is is embracing these kind of drugs, because they actually fucking work, But let's pivot a little bit now to talking about the effects on society, right? Because imagine in a world, if you will, that everyone has embraced GLP-1s, some kind of relevant dose. Everyone's kind of on them, right? Say it's saturated the market, right? So much of the modern world is based, it's geared, it's configured around eating and drinking. Like literally it is the nation's pastime, right? It's just every nation's pastime is based around food, alcohol, drinks, and this kind of stuff, right? What happens when no one really wants that?
But isn't that the problem though? That like so much of our lifestyles geared around these things which are fundamentally not good for us, right?
But it creates communion.
Yeah, but like we've got to look for other ways, right? And like, sure, like it might not be, like, look, and already, right, if your idea of community is sinking 10 beers at the pub with your mates after work, that's not really a good thing, right?
But having a meal with someone, right? Having a family meal.
Well, but maybe we just need right-sized and more healthy meals that aligns with what a reasonable person should be having. Like maybe instead of, okay, so it's like, like the World Cup's on in America at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And like all these American fucktards keep saying, oh, the Europeans love America because, we got free refills, like as though this is... And
they do love it. I've seen the videos.
Like our portion sizes are so big, like this isn't a good thing. Like this is not a good attribute. Like a good situation would be you go to a restaurant, a pub, a fast food outlet, and you get good, healthy, well-portioned meals, right? So you can do all the same things, but the problem is like the commercial side of the food business is not catering to moderation. It's catering to everybody's worst instinct, which is more sugar, more fat, more carbs, more whatever. And that's the bit.
The buffet.
We need to get rid of like that fundamentally is if en masse everyone takes these drugs, right, then they have to adapt. That's a good thing. That would be a good thing. Maybe it's like, maybe you get like a bit of protein, a salad on the side, and maybe like, yeah, okay, you can have like a soft drink, a sugary soft drink. You can have a beer, you can have a glass of wine.
You know, all that will happen though, Andy, is the fucking big food will find out a way to hack Ozempic. And this soda you can keep on drinking, and something about it, the chemical composition means that your stomach doesn't use the same mechanisms to realize you're full, so you can still keep on drinking it. It'll be something like that, you know, like this is a capitalist kind of structure, right?
Well, sure, but
and then it's a race between the GLP-1s trying to update the drug.
Okay, so like I want to take this to a couple of like draw out a few other dimensions to this. So now, like, we're in Australia, but I think this is like not necessarily unique to Australia. These drugs are not covered by, like, in Australia, the pharmaceutical benefits scheme. Like, they're like, you've got to pay full freight, right? So so like these are not cheap.
Even if you're clinically obese and you're diabetic.
If you're diabetic, I think they can prescribe it, but look, I'm not 100% sure the ins and outs. But like, if you're a little bit overweight, you're not going to get them for free, right? Or for $30. You're going to get like, and then there's all, you know, you mentioned shortages before. There's like, I think there's this thing where, they can be kind of have run outs and things like that. So, but like, we're talking hundreds of dollars a month, right? And, now I think you can get, it might be like in America, I know that like people have health insurance and they'll claim it on health insurance and stuff like that. But I suppose like, to be on these is probably the equivalent of a fancy gym membership, if that's the way of putting it, right? So it doesn't
That actually works.
But it works, yeah. but like these things are like, this creates a bit of an inequity, right, in the accessibility of these drugs, right? So the people who are in now, like the trope, you know, for us here in Australia would be like, if you're in Western Sydney, right, where there's a McDonald's or a KFC on every corner, and let's just say it's lower socioeconomic, like, and you don't have access to these drugs, yep, okay, they're going to continue to be obese. They're going to continue to have all of the negative health outcomes that comes with obesity. And then you're going to have all the people in the East who have better, more healthy food options that are quick service. And also they're all on like fucking like Ozempic and Mounjaro and Wegovy or whatever, right? Because, hey, they can afford it. It's like, what's $300 a month? You know, that's okay, right? So there's like this, now that might change over time, but like at the moment, at least, there's this like disparity, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always been the way, right? And I guess the thing it comes down to is how much of it is around the health benefits versus the vanity. You know, like I am totally okay with affluent people of affluent kind of neighborhood Botoxing the shit out of their face or getting boob jobs and, you know, whatever, or paying for Pilates instructors. All of that superficial stuff, like, go for your heart out. I think people need to be more focused on if people are literally dying or having adverse health outcomes. And to that end, I think as long as there's a provision on the diabetes end or the extreme kind of obesity end, then I'm okay. Like, I can live with that, right? Like, I mean, because that just falls in line with any other inequity about being able to access treatments and fillers and surgery and all this kind of stuff. That's all vanity. I'm okay with that.
So at what point should we, like, do you think, okay, so we're in a bit of a fiscally constrained environment, right? Around, like, globally, right? That's the thing, right? So governments are not looking to find new expensive things to fund, right? They're not like, oh, sweet, we can spend like $300 like a month or $400 or $500 a month for people to get these drugs. Sweet, that's good. Like, no government is like inclined to do that.
If they stay out of the hospitals as a result, maybe.
But this is the thing. It's like the marshmallow test, right? So the short run cost is really high because it's all up front, right? But the long-term cost is, the long-term benefit, or the benefits are long-term, right? So they are like reduced chronic disease and all that sort of stuff, right?
And the productivity that comes with that.
Yeah. So there's probably a legit case to like just make these available. And then of course the other angle is like they do want to make sure these are genuinely available for like the highest case needs, because they're not necessarily there've been shortages and things like that. So it's like there's probably a little bit of, and it's probably less bad than what it was now that there's more products on the market. But it is a little bit like the vaccines during COVID, where you've only got so many, so you've got to like decide who gets it first, right? So there's a bit of that, but eventually you can.
Wouldn't it be funny if the activist was like, "I will not stop until there's no more obese Indigenous people. They all have to be on GLP-1s."
Actually, one of the things like, because one of the things like there's this saying like it's called on the pen, right? Which is like a code for like you're on these drugs, right? Because the on the pen, because they're like there's like a pen you got to like inject yourself.
Sounds like a French name, on le pen.
That's a pretty big barrier for a lot of people. Like I reckon.
That's why we went to pill, right? Like the magic fat loss pill.
Yeah, the fat loss pill, because like jagging something like
but just to be kind of disambiguate, it's not an injection into the vein or into the muscle. It's like it's just into the. It's like an EpiPen almost.
Yeah. But like it's still
prick. It's not really an injection.
Well, it is an injection. It is a needle that goes in you, and then you pump a whole bunch of liquid inside yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
it's not intravenous.
No, it's not like you don't have to like have a nursing degree to like find the vein or anything like that. But it is like, I guess my point's more, if not in practice, certainly in theory or in thought, like people would be put off by the injection side of it, right? And so actually,
can you imagine if it was like the first generation of Viagra was like you have to inject it into your penis, right? And it's a bit of
that would not have taken off. I've got like another angle here as well, right? We were talking a little bit before about like how people have different susceptibility to weight loss, right? Or maybe not even
predispositions.
Yeah, just like and it could be context, right? It could be the same person that lives in the eastern suburbs will be completely different than if they lived in the western suburbs, right? Purely because of like the food options around them, right? And just their life, even like having to commute like an hour to work, will
environmental
completely change your anyway. So there is this like idea of willpower, right? So do you think there is like, okay, so let me throw something out there, like a line. It's cheating to lose weight through these drugs. It's cheating.
No, I don't think so. I think that there are some people who I believe don't have that predisposition and they choose an easier way to go on their fat loss. So I feel absolutely there are people who will opt out for that option. But I am a believer that there are different levels of biological predisposition to weight loss for all of the factors we spoke about. And you could make the same thing about, I mean, this is getting controversial now, but you could make the same thing about epidurals in childbirth, right? Like that's a really good example. Pain tolerances and thresholds are very individualistic. And it's one of the things that we don't have a comparative scale for. Like if we both get caught in the same injury or physical injury, there's no way to tell who's experiencing more pain between you and I.
It's just like 1 to 10.
Yeah. And so if a woman gets an epidural and one woman doesn't, under the same kind of conditions of their birth and delivery, you can't say. I think people understand that, right? It's not that one woman took the easy way out because they needed pain relief and the other one didn't. The pain thresholds are they're just individualistic, right? And I feel the same way when it comes to this stuff. That some people genuinely have a harder time for a variety of reasons.
Okay, but I have in the past lost significant amounts of weight, so more than 10 kilograms, through just willpower, like just changing, just making good decisions about what I eat and being more mindful, right?
Yeah.
And like now, before we were talking about like, say, the government paying for these drugs, right? Like why can't I say, hey, fatty, just fucking pull your finger out and do it a bit better, like so I don't have to pay for your fucking like $400-500 a month injection. Just like be a bit more thoughtful when you eat. I mean, like, why can't I say that?
You can, and people do, and people do. Like, let's be honest here, right? Being fat, it is socially acceptable to have fat bias. It's a part of everyday life. It's definitely a part, like in all the big ways and small. It's a time-honored tradition of hating on fat people, right? Because we associate them with being lazy and undisciplined and all this kind of stuff. That's there. That's already, like you said, that's already there. It's already out there, right? Like I don't think that is contested in a way. Now, and then if that's the case, they're already experiencing those downsides. You can have the same argument over any range of government subsidized drugs, right? Like you could have it over a lot of things that why should we be subsidizing anything when why should we be giving welfare in general when they should just work harder, and find jobs or whatever? Like,
I think this is okay. So yeah, look, I agree, but like I think there's still a little bit of social stigma, right, about this.
Yeah,
like
totally.
No, not about being fat, but like about doing it by taking these drugs. Like I think there's a sense of like it's almost like cheating. Like you're not putting in the hard work, right? So what I think it's like the equivalent of is I remember. Do you remember when like the early days of the internet, right? Where internet dating was kind of the thing you do if you can't date in the real world, right? It's
if you're a no-hoper or whatever.
Like it's kind of like going on an internet dating website. Like it's maybe something you don't tell people, right? You don't admit it. And then like how quickly that turned around with like Tinder and all the apps like that. Like it was almost like like you're not on Tinder. Like it would be unusual if you were single and not using the apps, right?
Yeah.
And for that to turn around so quickly culturally, like I feel like this is almost the same, right? It's like
and it will be. It totally will be, because it works, and I think that's the main thing. So the effect of the drug works. So yeah.
So all right, would you ever go on a GLP-1?
Yes. If they, like there's a part of me that I have never been seriously overweight, but I also have been very, very lean before. I've gone on a physical journey of being super healthy and lean, and it came quite easy to me when I was younger. And now that I'm older with all the kids and all the job, it is 1,000 times harder. It's almost impossible at the moment. So I do understand that helplessness of not being able to control your cravings. I think about food all the time. I'm a binge eater, I'm a binge drinker. So yes, I would love that as the support of when it's needed. I would just want to know that the side effects were controlled, and I don't believe it's there yet.
Well, you won't know, you don't. Okay, so the side effects, right, will impact people in different ways, right? Everyone will have their own experience of the side effects, and you will not know what those side effects are for you until you actually have it, right? So you kind of need to take the plunge, and that's the same with any drug, right? Like,
well, I mean, it's the same with any illicit drug you take. You don't know how you're going to react to a bad trip. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, like you said, they will refine it over time. They will find safer versions with lower, adverse effects.
Yeah, of course. But like generally speaking,
it's new. This stuff is new.
Like, look, the saving grace of these drugs is if it doesn't work for you or you don't like it or whatever, you just stop having it. So that's the way out, right? So look, I think it's good to have this up the sleeve, right? Like I think part of like I think the intuition here is like this is, at least at the moment, right, is that this is like this is the
nuclear option.
Like this is break glass in case of emergency, right? Like, and for a lot of people that emergency passed a long time ago, and it's like, oh, finally I found the alarm bell, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's how it is for like, if you're 150 kilos, right, and you're seeing these, it's like, oh, finally I found something that's, so that they'll hit the button and go, right? For people who are less like where that's not the case, it is like, hey, am I there yet?
So a really good kind of you know how I feel when we've had conversations about COVID and something, a really good judge of sometimes these, whether you should or shouldn't, or the considerations, is you scale it down to a youth. So say if you are going through, your kid's going through school and is really, really struggling and is obese, do you give it to them? Right.
Well,
those kind of questions really ram it home sometimes.
So I think there's the stronger case is like, probably not school age, but like,
because they have the most to lose in a lot of ways. If you go through puberty obese, there are lifelong impacts that sometimes you cannot reclaim just by getting your weight back to normal.
Yeah. So I think look, I don't know if it just follows that the younger the better, but I know that like certainly when you reach our age, right, like frankly middle age, right, you're kind of at a fork in the road, right? And when you're thinking about your health,
wind's blowing against you in all ways.
You have two pathways, right? You can tackle some issues which are going to get Which is probably why I'm interested in these, to be honest, right? Like, because you can tackle issues like when you're young enough to be a beneficiary, like in a long-term sense of what these things can do for you.
Yeah.
And like we talked about cardiovascular health, I mean, even like dementia, right? Stuff like that, cancer, certainly like weight, like even sleep apnea, right? So, a lot of people, especially men, like they have sleep apnea without even knowing it. And a lot of the time it's weight related.
Yeah.
So there's like, and that's actually really dangerous. Like the sleep apnea actually has all these other consequences for your body that aren't just not getting a good night's sleep, right? It's actually, for heart disease and all that. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of different stuff, right? So you reach a point, you're 40 years old, and you go, for my next 40 to be successful is like, what are the things I need to be doing now? Now, whether that's like you're at break glass in like case of emergency territory or not, but like definitely there, in many cases, the cost benefit analysis for these drugs are any doubts over side effects, like the expected value or negative value of those side effects are so low in proportion to what we know about the benefits. So it's just like and that hence why I think, medical practitioners are quite almost even encouraging when it comes to these drugs.
But like you said, if you can't do it yourself, which a lot of people may be able to, and that's the hard thing when you have this intervention which allows you to do it with much more ease, it changes the equation, it changes the behavior, right? That why even try when why climb the mountain when the cable car's there, right? Like I think it does complicate things. And like you said, you could, if we start taking it now, we'll be on the drug for another 40, 45 years. It's a long time to be on a drug.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Maybe it is.
Like not necessarily a good thing that you have to be on a drug, but a good thing in the sense that the reason you take it for the rest of your life is because the benefits of it are so profound.
I think what it comes down to, Andy, is growing up, and I think to your point, because there never has been up until this moment a pill that solves it all or drug that solves it all. So we're just naturally skeptical as a human race of shortcuts, of silver bullets, of a miracle drug, because up until now, there hasn't been anything that's really even come close. And so I think that's the part too that people need to see the evidence of.
Yeah, but then equally, if you're so risk averse and you need to see the evidence of it and you don't take it, you miss the benefits.
Well, I'm not saying that you wait 40 years to take it, but Ozempic, people only started talking about GLP-1s, 18 months
ago.
If
it's a rational fear, right? And just to be clear, these are all approved by the like pharmaceutical, like in Australia, the TGA.
So was Oxy.
Yeah, but for a narrowly prescribed purpose, right? And well,
opioid epidemic.
Well, okay, take us in Australia, right? So in Australia, that's that's not. That's a different like methadone and stuff is quite was quite controlled, right, in alignment with what it's actually for. So these have been through rigorous testing processes, and they're not new drugs. Like, I mean, like as in, like obviously there's new drugs coming out every day, and they're being there's innovation and they're evolving and all that sort of stuff. But they're not new drugs in the sense that the class of drug has been around since like early 2000s, right? It's just that they're originally for diabetes, right? And then, hang on, these have all these other like actual positive like side effects, actually really good, like actually people are doing really well on these, and then, okay, now there's actually the broader beneficial case, right? So in that sense, like I think we can have more confidence than I think what you're sort of suggesting, in the sense that they do have a track record. There's enough data points to draw out long-term consequences. And I think, again, it just comes down to everything's a gamble, and like if you're really risk averse, and sometimes it's a little bit like to apply it to a completely different context, right? If you were in a position to buy a house in Sydney, like in 2010, right?
Yeah.
And you had the attitude, look, I just think, the global financial crisis, we're just coming out of that. I think I might just hold off from buying a house, and then, okay, it's 2015, house prices have gone up,
I think this subject cuts a bit too close to home for a lot of our listeners, so maybe.
And I think there might be a bubble. I think I might just hold up, like, hey, that was the dumb call. Like, you should have got in, right? So it's the same kind of thing here. Like, you can yes, there's like risks, but there's also risks of inaction too.
Yeah. Well said. All right. Well, I think everyone has to have a good long look at the mirror and a talk to their GP.
All right. Over and out.
We are not doctors. Consult your GP before
GP1. Just ask ChatGPT, it'll tell you all the answers you need.